Okay guys, today is May the 4th, and you know what that means? It's my grandma's birthday! Happy birthday, Grandma! I love you! Oh, wait, shit, sorry, I'm getting a call here. Hello? Hello? Ah, thanks for reminding me. That's right, it's May the 4th, as in May the 4th be with you, as in Star Wars Day! I have had these cookie cutters for several years now, and I've barely ever gotten the chance to use them. So today I'm going to make some sugar cookies, but not just any sugar cookies. For the dark side, I am going to make a hot chocolate sugar cookie, and for the light side, I am going to make a pistachio sugar cookie. So I have some thoughts on sugar cookies. It's the #1 thing I get asked to make for baking commissions, and I understand why. It's like a huge fad right now to have like the nice, cute, decorated sugar cookie. That's all well and good. If you're paying me, I'm happy to make you whatever you want. But if I'm making something in my own personal time, I find that just a plain old sugar cookie is very boring. Come on, like it's the perfect canvas to do something creative as far as flavors. You guys, just think outside the box. Elevate your cookies, elevate your life. With that being said, I make sugar cookies a lot. I have a very specific process of how I like to make them, which includes making the dough the night before. Typically, sugar cookie dough needs at least 2 hours to chill, but I find that it's a huge time saver if I just make the dough like the day before, the night before, whatever. So we're gonna go to yesterday, Marissa, to tell you how to make this cookie dough. Then we'll come back to today, Marissa, to make these cookies. Softened to room temperature, granulated sugar, vanilla extract, pistachio extract, a room temperature egg, chopped pistachios, flour, baking powder, salt, cocoa powder, cinnamon, cayenne pepper, espresso powder. First things first, we've done it several times by now. We're going to cream together our butter and our sugar. All right, so we're pretty well creamed at this point. Our butter's a little lighter in color, so now we're gonna add our eggs and our extracts. Egg and extracts in there. So that's all well mixed. So we set aside our wet ingredients. Now we're gonna mix together our dry ingredients, which are our flour, our baking powder, our salt, and our chopped pistachios. All right, so I'm gonna put the mixer on low and add our dry mixture 1 spoonful at a time. Now, at this point, sometimes I find sugar cookies can be a little bit finicky and you might need to adjust your flour levels as you go. We will cross that bridge when we get to it, but let's get started on this. Okay guys, I actually mixed the last bit of this by hand, but this to me still looks just a hair too wet. So what'll happen if your cookie dough is too wet is it will not hold its shape and it'll spread out in the oven. Now, on the opposite side of that, if you add too much flour, your cookie's gonna be hard as rocks. So I'm just gonna add 1 spoonful of flour to this at a time until I get to the texture I want. Let's do that. Okay gang, I only added 1 more spoonful of flour, and you can see I'm pinching it and it's not sticking to me too much. So I like this texture we got going here. Also keep in mind that when you're rolling this out, you're gonna be adding more flour to it from, you know, dusting your surface, dusting your rolling pin. So be sure to not overdo it at this stage. Moving on. Okay, we have our dough on our saran wrap. We're just gonna wrap it up and then flatten it out into a disc. So I like to double wrap it, and that's because dough will absorb the flavor of anything pungent near it. So if you have, I don't know, a sliced onion next to your cookie dough, guess what? Your cookie dough is gonna taste like onions. Keep that in mind. Moving on to our next cookie, our hot chocolate sugar cookie. You guys know the drill. You guys know the drill. Cream your butter and sugar. I forgot, I already got started. Just whatever, you know. Egg and extract. On to dry ingredients and the fun stuff. So first we're gonna add our cocoa powder. So you can kind of get away with not sifting flour sometimes. I see a lot of chefs on TV just not do it. I prefer to do it, it can't hurt. But with cocoa powder, you definitely want to, because cocoa powder tends to have a lot of little lumps and clumps in it. So we're gonna go ahead and sift that all out. And I like to use dark chocolate cocoa powder because, as I've said before, I don't care for milk chocolate. But if you prefer to use just a regular chocolate cocoa powder, go for it. Next thing we have is espresso powder. So I'm only gonna put in just enough to enhance the flavor of the chocolate. So just in general, coffee enhances chocolate. So I don't wanna make a coffee flavored cookie. I just want to pump up the chocolatey flavor. Hi, my cat. So at this point, if you don't wanna make a spicy chocolate cookie or a Mexican hot chocolate or a hot chocolate, whatever I called it at the beginning, I honestly can't remember. It's spicy and chocolate. So if you don't want it to be spicy, then just skip the cinnamon and the cayenne. But if you want to live on the edge, let's go for it. And also, we're not putting in a whole lot of these spices, just enough to punch up the flavor. And cayenne, that's all I'm gonna do is boop, boop. A little bit goes a long way. I mean, you can adjust the spice levels to your taste, but we're gonna start low for now. Now we're gonna mix this up. All right, now we're going to gradually add our dry ingredients to our wet ingredients. I had a breach. Ah! It's okay, we'll double wrap it and she'll be fine. Our dough is wrapped up and ready to go. We're gonna put that in the fridge. I did end up adding another spoonful of flour and just a little extra pinch of the cayenne pepper. I wanted to have a bit more of a kick. But again, that can be to your taste. So she's going in the fridge. See you guys tomorrow. So we have two flavors of cookie dough. We have one for the light side, one for the dark side. But if we look at our cookie cutters, we got Darth Vader, Stormtrooper, Boba Fett, and Yoda. So we got 3 dark side, oh Jesus, sorry for that camera angle. God, we got 3 dark side and 1 light side guy. I want it to be equal. So we're gonna just go ahead, do Darth and Stormtrooper, Trooper as is, and we're gonna transform our Yoda into Baby Yoda, and we're gonna transform Boba Fett into the Mandalorian. We're gonna start with our dark side guys first. I already have my dough sitting out to kind of get to room temperature a bit so it doesn't crack as I try to roll it out. And I have my fancy pants rolling pin here that measures the thickness with these stoppers on the end. If you don't have that, you can always use a bottle cap to help measure because that's about 1/4 inch high. So I've gotten as many cookies as I can out of our chocolate cookie dough. And as you can see, I still have room on the cookie sheet, but I'm not going to put my pistachio cookies on here as well because I want to prevent any type of cross-contamination of flavor while they're baking. After we have our cookies punched out and we have them on our cookie sheet, then we're going to freeze the cookie dough. The reason we want to freeze it is so that it holds its shape while it's cooking. Baking, cooking, baking. I like to put my cookies in the freezer and then start my oven for a preheat. So in the time that it takes the oven to preheat, I will know that my cookies are good and frozen. So my preheat just went off. I'm gonna put the tray of cookies that's in the freezer in the oven, bake that for 10 minutes. And while that's baking, I'm gonna put my next tray in the freezer. And then while that's in the freezer, I'm gonna roll out my next tray. That's the process I do. Okay, this is how we're gonna turn Yoda into Baby Yoda. I did 2 practice ones to get this, which, you know, I learned that I should probably try something before just going straight to filming it. I actually filmed my first one, it didn't look that good, and I was like, well, I guess I'll just do it again. All right, so as you can see, I didn't do the stamp out. I kind of left it as it is. And what I'm gonna do is just kind of cut a straight line off the bottom, straight line off the top, and just kind of smooth out the edges with my fingers. Kind of make him a little bit more of that little squat Baby Yoda head that we all know and love. And then I'm just gonna pinch his ears a little bit. And there you have it. Little base for our Baby Yoda. Mando's gonna be a little easier to do because all we wanna do is cut out this like antenna type thing. We're still gonna do the stamp thing. We're just gonna kind of ignore that little paint chip bit there. So let's get started on that. See there? So now what we're gonna do, take our knife again and just cut that right off. Kind of reshape it a little bit. Then we have Mando. Easy. So our first batch of the hot chocolate cookies is out of the oven. I just want to show you guys something. Darth Vader is a little puffy. What probably happened is one of the times I rolled out the dough and reformed the ball, I probably left like an extra layer of not quite mixed in flour or some type of air pocket, and that's how that happened. It'll probably collapse as it cools. I wouldn't worry about it too much, but just kind of showing you things that can happen. So all of our cookies are either in the oven, in the freezer waiting to go into our oven, or cooling. So at this point, we can start making our royal icing because cookies, they tend to cool very quickly. So you don't have to wait very long to go into decorating them. So like I said, we can make a royal icing right now, or I can rant about Star Wars for a little bit. Rian Johnson ruined Star Wars. That's a pretty blunt statement, but I'm gonna tell you why I feel that way. It's because Rian Johnson broke the rules of Star Wars. See, every good sci-fi or fantasy book, movie, show, whatever, has pretty well established rules. And that's what kind of stops it from going off the rails and into some like weird place that takes you beyond your suspension of disbelief. A good example of this would be the Harry Potter books, the original 7. I don't know what's going on with those Fantastic Beasts, whatever, I don't care. But J.K. Rowling does a pretty good job of establishing what magic can and cannot do. Now, there might be some slight variations here and there, but like I said, nothing beyond the suspension of disbelief for things that have already been established in that universe. Going into Star Wars, what the Force can and cannot do is pretty well established in the original trilogy as well as the prequels. So, for example, in The Last Jedi, I kind of hate this, but I've had people kind of convince me that it doesn't make sense. That whole kind of weird Force FaceTime between Rey and Kylo Ren. So the reason, this is not something from the original trilogy, but I can see it as an evolution of the Force because in The Empire Strikes Back, at the end, after Luke gets his arm cut off, there's my buzzer, to be continued. Okay, I took cookies out of the oven, where was I? Anyway, in Empire, where after Luke gets his hand cut off by Darth Vader and he falls down that tube and he's hanging off those antennas, he uses the Force to communicate with Leia, who's in the Millennium Falcon, to like come help him. So they have an established Force connection, and the same kind of goes with Kylo Ren and Rey. I kind of see the Force FaceTime as an evolution of that kind of communication through the Force. So even though I don't like it, okay, fine. But something that was never established that the Force can do is save you from the vacuum of space. So when the bridge gets blown up in The Last Jedi and Leia gets sucked into space and suddenly Mary Poppins her way back into the spaceship, that's just beyond what I can believe the Force can do, especially for someone who has yet to be established as a proper Force user. Yeah, she's technically Leia Skywalker. She's Force sensitive, yada, yada, yada. She's not God. That's like God level Force powers. That's, it's so bad, you guys. It's so bad. I can't. And then something else that was significant about the original trilogy is A New Hope, the first one, episode 4. There is a 3-year time gap between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. That's also the 3-year like real life time gap between when the movies came out. So I really like that those movies were basically done in real time. The amount of time that you had to wait for the next movie to come out was the same amount of time that these characters continue to live on. And that kind of helps to, with some like suspension, another piece where it helps with some suspension of disbelief, because you go, they have a whole established base on Hoth and Empire. Han Solo is, I think he's a general, I don't know. He has a rank now within the rebellion. I could have looked this up, but I didn't, but he's like an established officer in the rebellion now. And before, he just kind of showed up and was just like who's this guy? But anyway, I digress. So again, it's been 3 whole years that Luke has been trying to teach himself the Force. 3 whole years that Luke Skywalker has been trying to teach himself the Force. And yet, when he's out on Hoth and he gets caught by that abominable snowman and he's hanging upside down in that cave, he still struggles to use the Force to get his lightsaber to come to him. So this is significant because going into The Last Jedi starts right where, what is it called? The Force Awakens stops. There's literally no time gap whatsoever. And the reason this is a failing to the movie is because there was no downtime for assumed character development. So you're kind of wasting, well, actually, you know what? You're not wasting any screen time showing it because Rian Johnson just didn't show it. Rian Johnson just decided that, again, Rey was going to be God mode with the Force, and at the end of The Last Jedi, suddenly be able to move an entire avalanche worth of rocks. I take umbrage with this because Luke Skywalker, in 3 years on his own, could not teach himself to move his own lightsaber. But Rey, no formal Force training at all. Luke doesn't teach her anything, by the way. She just kind of like gets sick of Luke's shit, goes to rescue her friends, and suddenly she knows how to move all these rocks. Bruh, I would have believed it if they did, again, the time jump, showed Rey training with Luke and that she was like killing it. That would still be pretty quick development, but fine, you know, whatever. She's strong with the Force, I could believe that. But instead, Rian Johnson was just like, no, she's like really good at the Force. I'm Rian Johnson. I don't know if you know this, but I did Looper and I directed a couple episodes of Breaking Bad. You're welcome, I'm Rian Johnson. I hate him so goddamn much, you guys. So, And then, I don't know if you knew this, but Rian Johnson wrote Knives Out as a huge FU to all the Star Wars fans that didn't like The Last Jedi because he just claimed anyone that didn't like that movie was racist and sexist, which, let's be honest, there was probably a decent chunk of people where that was true, but people like me, not so much. I didn't like it because you're bad at storytelling and you just didn't follow the rules of Star Wars. Stop being a little bitch about it. Okay, I'm done with my Star Wars rant, for now at least. Now I gotta clean everything up and then switch gears to getting the royal icing going. So let's do that. First thing you wanna know before you start making your icing, whatever. First thing you wanna know before you start making your icing is what colors you're gonna need, what consistency you need those colors to be, and how much you're gonna need of each of those colors. So I kind of just wrote down what I'm gonna need. So for our white, we just need a 15-second royal icing, and I'll get to what that is later. Black, we need a 15-second and also a piping. Gray, we need 15-second in piping. Green, we need 15 seconds in piping. And pink, we just need a little bit of a 15-second icing. So these are pretty much the only three colors you're gonna need. You're gonna need black, that's gonna make black and gray, green for Yoda, and then just a little bit of the pink for inside of Yoda's ears. I feel the need to show you guys this because I think consistently every episode of Nailed It, there's someone that messes this up and it's so simple. It's so easy. Okay gang, you have your piping bag, your 2-piece piping tip applicator, and your piping tip. First thing you're gonna do is cut off the top of your piping bag. Then you're gonna put this piece inside the bag. This goes inside the bag. And you do want a little bit of overhang like that. So now, the piping tip goes on top of that piece outside the bag, like this. And then this piece, again, on the outside of the bag goes over the piping tip and then you screw it down. And voila. So if you don't have the applicator, you can put the piping tip right in the bag. But you know, do make sure you cut a little hole at the end so the tip actually functions. Or you can just cut a little tip off the end of your piping bag and just use your piping bag without a piping tip. It's your choice, whatever you want to do. I'm not the boss of you. Okay gang, these are the items you want to have on standby before we start making our royal icing. I have all of the piping bags ready to go. I have 4 bowls ready to mix our 4 colors. Remember, we have gray, black, pink, and green. We'll just leave white in the mixing bowl, and you're gonna need a pint glass to help you fill your piping bags. Okay, let's go into ingredients for this icing. A tablespoon and a half of meringue powder, 3 tablespoons of warm water, half a tablespoon of light corn syrup, 2 cups of powdered sugar. So why royal icing? Royal icing dries completely hard. The end. So if you've ever decorated a cookie with regular buttercream and you've tried to like stack them or transport them, it just creates a big old mess. But royal icing, once it dries, it's hard. You can stack those cookies, you can transport those cookies. It's just more practical for decorating cookies with. So you want to whip your meringue powder in your warm water until the mixture gets just a little bit frothy. You don't want to overdo it because we're not trying to make meringue, we're making a royal icing. So that's gonna take about 1 minute, but keep an eye on it. Don't always go by times and recipes, always go by sight. Trust your peepers, trust your peepers more. So that's about the amount of froth we want. So now I'm gonna add my powdered sugar and my corn syrup, and I'm gonna mix that till it kind of becomes more of like a paste-like consistency, and then I'll show you that. Okay, gang, this is kind of the starting consistency we want. As you can see, it's really holding its peaks. Now, yeah, let me just show you something. Look at that, how it holds its peak. Now, we're gonna have to water this down to make it pipeable. But if you are using royal icing, say, to put together a gingerbread house, or you want to pipe something that's going to hold its shape like a flower or a succulent, this is the consistency you want, but not what we want right now. So we need to gradually water it down to a piping consistency, and then after that, gradually water it down to that 15-second consistency, which I'll show you. I'll show you. It's fine. Don't worry. I'm going to show you. So I kind of feel good about this as our decorative piping consistency. You can see I'm kind of leaving some streaks in here and they're not immediately falling over, but it still feels kind of runny enough to run through a piping tip. The good thing about royal icing is that it hardens. The bad thing about royal icing is that it hardens. So as soon as it starts to become exposed to the air, the surface of these is going to start to harden a little bit. I'm not quite ready to work with them. So what I'm going to do is just put a damp paper towel over each of them, and that'll stop them from hardening before I'm ready to work with them. So I'm going to do that quick. See how these are all set aside, covered with a damp paper towel? Okay, moving along. I feel good about this as a 15-second consistency, and I'm going to show you what that means. So I'm going to fold this over on itself, or like just kind of drizzle on top, whatever. It's gonna take it 15 seconds for it to flatten out again, so I'll show you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. See how it took 15 seconds for it to kind of fully flatten? That's what we want. Since our white 15 second is ready to go, I'm gonna show you how to put this into the piping bag. So the easiest way to do it is get yourself a pint glass, put your piping bag in it, and then just scoop your icing right in there. Ready, runny, hold on, I'll get it a good time. Bam, okay. You can save that. You can save that, it's okay, it's fine. Oh my God, I hate royal icing, I hate it. God, what a mess. I guess I make them. It's not even like fun to lick off your finger if you get all over your fingers, because it has no flavor, it's just sugar. But it serves a purpose. So I'm gonna try to work that down as far as I can. Get the air bubbles out. Give it a twist and then put a stopper on it. There is icing all over my phone. Jesus Christ. All right, there you go. I'm gonna store it like this so we don't have it seeping out at the top. It's already, okay, so I'm gonna mix the green, and I'm gonna show you that a little bit goes a long way with these gel food colorings. So for Yoda, I'm using moss green. Moss green. So I'm just gonna use my sugar pick. This is a sugar pick, or you can use a toothpick. I'm gonna dip it in, that's probably way too much. Just gonna put a little dab through here. I'm gonna mix it up and see how that looks, and just kind of gradually add till I get the color I want. See, obviously it wasn't enough. Add more. I'm gonna add more. Just gonna go for it. I'm pleased with that color. You probably can't see it too well because I decided to show you green in a green bowl. I'm real great at planning this, you guys. Okay, gang, it's just shy of 5. See, I can't even talk anymore. It's just shy of, I can never talk anyway, so I don't know why I'm differentiating this. It's just shy of 5 o'clock. I'm getting very tired. I've been at this, it's probably 11 o'clock this morning. Usually making sugar cookies with a royal icing is a couple-day process for me, so I kind of expected this happening. I'm gonna off camera finish up all my royal icing, and then tomorrow I will rejoin you in decorating the cookies. Probably didn't even have to tell you that, because through the magic of editing, I'm just gonna reappear tomorrow, ready to go. So there's that. So I'm ready to decorate the cookies. I'm going to decorate the cookies. I'm going to attempt to just do a time-lapse video of the decorating process. So I really won't be able to kind of tell you guys what I'm doing as I do it. But keeping that in mind, I'm just gonna tell you a few things before I get started. Anytime you see me filling in bigger areas, that's gonna be our 15-second fill icing. Anytime you see me doing smaller details, that's gonna be our piping consistency of icing. Right. So I just went to bring my mom her coffee mugs because she always leaves it around the house, and look at what I'm dealing with here. Another thing about working with royal icing is when you're working with it in layers, and then also kind of like, I'm gonna say like quilting method for lack of a better term, you need to let each layer or shape set before you go on to the next one. That also kind of increases the time. So just keep that in mind. If I'm doing this time lapse and you kind of see like an obvious where I cut it and then put something else in, just know there was like a time in there where I had to let the icing set. Let's go. We're all done. Here are our finished Star Wars cookies. And we're done. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Happy Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you, and happy birthday, Grandma. Love you.
Happy birthday, my beauty.
Happy birthday, Grandma. Hope you have a great day. We love you, and so does Bentley.
He does. He loves you.